Can you hear me? Can you hear me? It's good. Right. I'd like to thank the MCAs for inviting me out to speak today, and thank everybody for attending the show at AK's here. I always enjoy the show to see everybody in the community here, and get to catch up with a lot of people. And as you may have heard, I'm not sure if it was in the biography, I wasn't listening, but I do have a no-till garden, and I nerd out pretty good in that in the summertime. I'm looking forward to summer because it's been so cold out, and I can't wait. So if you drive along the highway, often you'll see these little plots that are along the side of the highway. Sometimes they have flags or something like that, that you may be driving past a diversification center, and that could be us working in the field. I'm just going to catch up to my clicker. What I'm really here to talk about today is what we're doing in those plots, but how do we get to that point with our partnerships? And one of those partnerships is with the MCA here. So a little later in the presentation, I'll talk about the results, but first I'm going to talk about that partnership. So today, just going to make sure it's working. Oh yeah, here we go. Today, the audience will learn who we are at the Diversification Centers, where we are and what we do, and how we can help you. And maybe you can learn something today that you can employ on your farm to make you some more money. Sometimes our findings can influence tens of thousands of dollars, depending on the size of the farm and what you can do. Most of what I see is genetic or environmental differences from year to year, and sometimes those differences can make a big change. Sometimes it's hot, sometimes it's cold, sometimes it's dry, and sometimes it's wet. And what's neat about the diversification centers is we're located all over the province, and so we get different climatic situations each year, and we can combine that data to understand different situations. And so we have 4 diversification centers. I'm in WADO, or Westman Agricultural Diversification Organization in Melita. There's the Parkland Crop Diversification Foundation in Roblin, the Crop Diversification Center in Carberry, and Prairies East Sustainable Agriculture Initiative in Arborg. And generally we have, each site maybe has 40 to 50 projects, but in total we have about 8,000 or more plots per year, and that's a lot to look after. So we try and manage everything like the local farms. We no-till maybe, we spray, harvest, and then each plot is categorized and statistically analyzed to come up with a plan. So I want you to learn from us today and perhaps try something new in your fields this year, and let us take the risk. If it wasn't for the teams at each of the diversification centers, we wouldn't have much to talk about or have much to do. They're the ones doing a lot of the work in the field, taking the data and managing the plots. As I indicated, we're located around the province here in different areas, and as you can see, each region has slightly different crop heat units or conditions. So I'm down in the banana belt in the southwest in Melita here. I just wanted to put a little bit of a climate change theme into the presentation. As you can see from the map here, we have our recent past, 1951 to 1980 data set. And then as you move into our present moment here, or recent past, it's getting warmer. And it's no secret, we know that's happening. And we're trying to create a theme in our projects to account for that. So just moving into the future here, this is from the data from the Climate Atlas website in Winnipeg, looking at the prediction from 2021 to 2050. And as we move into the future, and if we actually do what we say with the Paris Accord, in the environmental rules that we're supposed to abide by, we can expect 448 more crop heat units in a year. That's quite substantial, but if we do nothing and just do business as usual, that's going to be 523 for the southern Manitoba area. And perhaps if it just means we're going to get the same amount of rainfall, which is what they're predicting, if it's a lot hotter or warmer, we're just going to have less in the soil and it's just going to seem drier. So I think moving with our projects, we've got to think drought resistance, heat tolerance, and maybe even growing some new crops that we've never tried before. So to bring it all together here, we have to have government, academia, and industry working together. So we're looking at the federal, provincial, and municipal levels. Academia, we've got our universities and colleges, even the high schools, we have to inspire to get them paying attention to agriculture. And within the industry, we're kind of part of that too, looking at commodity groups, producer groups, private industry, and you, the farmers. So adding to this, we're all part of the innovation continuum. And so it all starts with an idea that needs some basic research done maybe at our universities or colleges. And then this is where I come into play at the applied research level, that take those ideas and employ them into the field to see if they work. And then we have knowledge transfer, so we have like our field days and things like that, and maybe some large-scale plots, farm-scale plots, where the farmer adopts the idea. I often get a lot of our ideas directly from the farmers as a feedback loop that go right back to the original idea, but we also get that from all the levels too, through applied and basic research. I just want to thank all the cooperators that we have at the Diversification Centers. This is our 2024 list that we compiled. We had 56 partners, so we're well integrated into the industry, and we work with a lot of people. This is the number of crops we've ever grown at the Diversification Centers from the beginning of time, and it's 145 crops. It's hard to believe we're able to grow around that number. We probably can grow a few more. I've tried I've tried just white rice, and it does not work. It's too cold in Melita, even though we're the banana belt. I've tried guar beans, they don't work, and numerous other crops that just don't have a built-up industry behind them. They sometimes fail too, just for that reason. So this is 2022 data of all the acres that we've had in Manitoba of different crops. The top contenders being canola and wheat, or spring wheat, that's no surprise. Hay, soybeans, oats, that's all the top crops. And then there's this last 3% at the very top, that's all the other crops. So this is just 11 crops, and then the other 100 plus crops are somewhere stuck in this pie of that 3%. So sunflower, potato, flax kind of fit into those categories. If it wasn't for our commodity groups too, like MCA or the pulse growers who lobby for these crops, they take a small levy from the producer as they sell the crop and reinvest it into that commodity. We wouldn't have research dollars coming in that maybe weren't available from public sources. But also these commodity groups, they help support the crop through market development, the agronomy, the extension, networking policy, and funding our research that we can do at the DCs, for example. Big acre crops, this makes it very stable for them to have a commodity group supporting them, but for the small crops, like the special crops, often, yes, they can pay big if you hit it right on the certain kinds of years, but often they come with huge risks that the large commodity group crops don't have. So enough of the politics, let's get right into the results here. And I'm going to talk mostly about the MCA type crops like corn, sunflower, flax, and wheat, and cereals in general, I guess. So starting out with, we have the McVet corn variety trials. We probably had our our biggest corn trial we ever did in 2023, 2024 now. We had something like 42 different varieties we were testing in Melita. And you can find this information in the seed guide. You can find that seed guide down at the Manitoba Agriculture booth in the Curling Club. And coincidentally, this year, I don't know if we remember that windstorm we had in October 5th. Some of the winds were sustaining at like 85 kilometers an hour. 89, it says on the notes. That created a situation in the field that I've never really seen, and that was the ear drop in the corn. And so at the bottom here, you have all the varieties of corn. They're just a number. I wanted to keep it anonymous, but some of these varieties here, like number 15, we're up to almost 24% yield loss just with the cobs falling off the plant, and that's quite unacceptable, especially at this stage of the breeding season or breeding cycle. These are varieties that are being tested by your current companies who are trying to sell seed. So they'll look at these numbers and determine which one might be best. Well, you can, if you take 5% of the 5% level, anything on this side of me will not be useful maybe on the farm. It's just too risky to grow. But everything under maybe 5%, those are your varieties you maybe want to look at just on ear drop. Now this ear drop data is not really available in the seed guide. The seed guide will show you the potential yield that could have been there or the corrected yield considering the ear drop. Now this is just looking at moisture, which is also found in the seed guide. And if you consider anything dry, which is under 15% for corn, the rest being tough, these are the varieties that you want on this side, up to about this point. So what I've done is sorted the varieties that were worst at dropping their ears compared to the ones that didn't drop their ears. And so we can disregard anything up to about this point. And this is the point at which the varieties started to not drop ears. And these were also the varieties that were dry. So you didn't have to put this through the dryer. And so we're left with anything about 150 bushel a acre. You got about seven varieties that fit that category. So out of all 42 varieties, only 7 really made the cut, and made my cut anyway. So this is really big. If we compute, ear drop as a loss, we had anywhere from $38 to $180 an acre in loss just on ear drop. And if we consider our drying cost, for example, if it takes about 50 cents to dry a bushel of corn for about a 5% drop in moisture, you're looking at about a $75 loss just picking your corn variety. So that, to me, that's kind of substantial. If I was a seed salesman, I would gladly take your $200 and some an acre and put it in my pocket, but I don't think that's very nice. Another project that we work with MCA is the sunflower variety trials. We look at both the confectionery and oilseed types. We had sites in Melita, Carberry, Beausejour with the Diversification Centers, and then additionally there was sites at Elm Creek and Rosendale. And basically we just look at yield, height, maturity, seed size, test weight. I suspect with maybe canola acres under pressure with disease, maybe we should be looking at sunflowers, for example, as an alternative oil seed. So more kind of interestingly, we also did a sunflower row spacing project. This was looking at oilseed sunflower. It was funded by the MCA. And we were comparing solid seeded 9.5-inch row spacing, 15-inch row spacing, and 30-inch row spacing sunflowers at 3 different populations 18, 22, and 26,000 plants per acre. And we had a couple of sites at Carberry and Melita. So this is our vacuum planter for the corn, and you can see in the back we have a solid seeded seed hawk that's doing those plots. So this is a kind of a drone picture of the entire trial, and you can almost pick out the different populations within the drone photo. Some are, really tightly packed together, while the others are quite loose. And over here you can see the producer's field, who's a solid seeded operation. And as you can imagine, there's lots of gaps. Just like in our solid seeded situation, we have lots of gaps here. Looks quite comparable to the farmer. And things you can be concerned about here is weed resistance, or weeds just poking up between the gaps, and wasted space that maybe could have been used in generating grain. So what were the results here? Well, this is just kind of more blown up, I guess. I divided up the plots. You can see the different populations below, and the row spacing just kind of gives you perspective. And looking at the results here, we just had one good site year here in Melita. And it turns out that the 15-inch spacing is actually the best yielding, which is kind of compelling. And if we look at bushel weight, the low population had the lowest bushel weight. And then at lodging, we had the most lodging with the highest population. Days to flower and height were the shortest for the 15-inch, which makes kind of sense. The 15-inch spacing made the plants the happiest, and despite whatever population we were using, we could not tease out which specific population for 15-inch was best. We just know 15-inch was good. Is it common? Not really to do 15-inch, but is it possible? Certainly. So it kind of worked good in our sandy loam soil in Carberry. The soil was quite more compacted, and we were having trouble teasing out the 15-inch spacing because of compaction with the tires. Okay, this is such a big slide with the screen, it's really overwhelming. Anyway, we have another project with MCA looking at seed treatments in flax, and we tested both a brown flax and a yellow flax. So just for the varieties, the yellow one was AAC Bright, where the brown was Roland. And basically, we had treatments of no seed treatment. Then we had some Ensure Pulse at a low rate and a high rate. And then we had VitaFlow, one of the former industry standards of the past here. In 2023, we did witness stand reduction in the plots without using seed treatment, so we know it works. One thing I should note is the yellow flax variety is actually quite a tender variety for emergence. Because it doesn't have the brown tannins of the brown flax, it has a tougher time coping with a lot of the diseases that the plant comes in contact with. So out of three out of four sites, we had stand differences, so the seed treatment worked, but only in Melita we had yield as a significant results. So 1 out of 4 site years in 2023, yield was affected by seed treatment. And we knew it was about 7 bushel the acre if we just look at seed treatment alone. But if we tease it out here between flax types, we actually had a 11 bushel the acre difference in the yellow and a 0 bushel the acre difference in the brown. So that kind of reinforces that yellow is a more tender seed to be in the soil, and seed treatment worked good. Moving into 2024, we had quite a bit more better results, and that's because the environment was more conducive for disease. It was a lot wetter, and most of the sites, 3 out of 4 sites, had plant stand loss if we didn't seed treat. So, and that worked out to be about 36% difference, 3 out of 4 site years if we use seed treatment. And if we convert this to yield, or at least observed yield, half the sites responded just based on variety. So we were able to see that the brown flax responded good. And then over here, we're looking at yield by seed treatment. We have 2 out of 4 sites responded with 7 bushel the acre response to seed treatment. I got to stand way back here to see it. Good. Okay. On this side, we have yellow flax, and that side, brown flax. So let's look at the yellow flax here. We've seen a 9 bushel the acre difference if we use seed treatment 3 out of 4 years. And if we're doing it on brown flax, it was only 3 bushel the acre difference, 3 out of 4 site years. So what does this mean? It means about half the time we get a good response either in brown or yellow flax, but with yellow flax it's more pronounced because it's a more tender variety. Next project here is a greenhouse gas trial that we did in winter wheat, and it's in cooperation with Agriculture Agri-Food Canada with Dr. Aaron Glenn. We also had collaborators with Ducks Unlimited Canada and our fellow diversification centers. And so if you can imagine, just kind of looking along the pictures here, we have our little seed packages of our fertilizer that we applied, and some of it is treated with inhibitors, for example. Then we go out and seed it in the fall, and we have to measure the greenhouse gas using just like a syringe and a chamber that we suck out the air and analyze it at the lab. And there's a drone view of the project, and each of these little squares you see on each of the plots is where we sample for the greenhouse gas. This is a gas chromatograph, and it's located in Brandon here at the research center, and it measures the greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide, nitrous oxide, and methane. And thanks to Dr. Aaron Glenn for sponsoring this part of the project, in which they analyze the little tubes of gas that we sample over time. If you want to nerd out about what that looks like on a graph, I've kind of enhanced it here with the ovals about the gassing off of the fertilizer. And here we have 0 nitrogen applied. This is the ambient air, and you can see the zeros that are nice and low. But anytime we apply, this is a 100% nitrogen sideband application, you see the gas coming off. And this is just rep 2 of 4 reps. So I just wanted to make sure you guys saw the effect that the gas is for real. If we look at the yield summary from this project, we have our untreated check here across the sites. That comes in nice and low. We know that if we don't apply fertilizer, we don't get yield. And anytime we do, we have a 100% urea here in the fall as a sideband. It's very strong. And if we split it up using an inhibitor in the fall and spring, it's not too bad at all. Then we got this unique treatment over here. It's called the 100% Super U, applied late in the fall as a broadcast. And it actually, we detected it to be a little bit lower in yield. So I imagine that maybe, getting some snow and runoff, leaching happening, and because it's not in the ground where it's supposed to be, we are gassing some of that nitrogen off, and it's hurting us in yield. And then adding to that, we look at the protein across the sites. Untreated check, we have low protein, and if we apply any type of fertilizer, it's great. And we did notice sort of a little blurb over on this end, again with the Super U. This is the yield bar, and this is the protein bar here. for whatever reason, Super U actually had greater protein and at the end here. But the yield, as you can see, if we combine all the data for all the sites, was a little lower with Super U. Moving on to another project here, sponsored by the MCA, was looking at small legumes like clovers or alfalfa in the understory of winter wheat. And so we had different methods of application. We either drilled it in the fall with the row of the wheat or broadcast it in the spring. And we did have some nitrogen here applied to the plot just as a supplement, and then other nitrogen treatments to see if we could tease out any effect that the small legume could offer in the rotation the year after. And so we had sites at all the diversification centers, Arborg, Carberry, Melita, and Roblin. And when it came down to the results here, Melita, Carberry, and Roblin had the same result. And we were having a very tough time establishing the legumes. They maybe grew, but maybe the competition or the drought conditions implied by the winter wheat was too intense for the legume to actually take hold. And so we did see a little bit in Melita here in the low spots. We had some spring sweet clover or alfalfa that grew in the low spot, but not in the higher spots. And our fall sweet clover died. It just couldn't overwinter properly. And this is kind of the emergence of those legumes across the treatments. Sweet clover fall didn't come up. Alfalfa fall was quite poor. Red clover in the fall was poor. White clover in the fall was poor, and this is likely due to winter kill. But then the sweet clover in the spring was okay in Melita. Alfalfa in the spring was okay in the Melita, and not much red clover, white clover in the spring, or perennial ryegrass. So why is this important about putting covers underneath crops? I think it's worth noting, in regenerative agriculture, if you've got livestock integrated into your system, there's potential to send the animals back out after harvest. Winter wheat comes with this real lag time in the fall where there's really nothing growing. And I often hear from producers that they don't like to grow winter wheat because it's too wet in the next year. There's just not enough water use in the fall when it would be normally used by spring wheat, for example. But winter wheat has this huge time. It's banking water into the soil. So a lot of no-till farmers I find say no, we don't want it. Then also, there's also maybe government incentives to actually establish legumes like this in your understory. You can get free seed, for example, from certain programs, or BMPs that you can apply for. So we just want to make sure we know how to do this before somebody tries this on their own and fails. So one of the weird things was here in Arborg, they had rain. And rain really matters when you're trying to establish these legumes. All their legumes worked because it rained either in June or in the fall. So their project is continuing into a canola rotation into this year, and they're going to see if there's any yield difference by having those legumes in the understory who have been fixing nitrogen last fall. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, new project here. We're looking at the Ultra Early Barley Project, which is in collaboration with Agriculture Agri-Food Canada and WADO, where I'm from. And this is headed up by our local Dr. Anna Badia here in Brandon and Dr. Brian Beers in Lethbridge. And why are we bothering with seeding our barley in like March or April? It's because of the climate change effect that we're trying to understand the behavior of barley and see if it's able to grow in those conditions where it's so cold in the ground. And we're talking at 0 degrees is one of my starting treatments. And also, we suspect maybe some of these genetics might be conducive for cold seeding, and we also want to expand our timing that we want to seed our crops to get around those hot stages that maybe are too hot or too dry in August, for example. So one of the projects, I call it Experiment 12. We're looking at the cultivars of barley here. We have Cooper, Connect, Durango, Lariat, Synergy, and Stettler, and we're seeding them at about 1 inch deep at 0 degrees, 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10 degrees this coming spring. And so our first one will be probably, I'm going to guess, end of March. I'm hoping I can scratch the ground and get something in. We have done winter barley before at Wado over here. This was some germplasm we got from Western Ag and Professional Agronomy, and it did grow that year, about 2 years ago. We did it again the year after, and it didn't vernalize and produce a head. So it's kind of touchy, but I think there's some potential. The second project that we have is Experiment 13. It's more in depth. We have 3 cultivars of barley, 2 seeding rates at 300 and 450 seeds per meter squared, and then several soil temperature triggers that we do. So we got 0 to 3 degrees, 5, 7.5, and 10 degrees. And we already seeded this dormant one last fall at, I think it was November 15th, we were out seeding. So that's probably enough for the project side of it. Right now, we're in a state where we're buying a lot of equipment due to the very gracious funding from the Manitoba Crop Alliance and the Manitoba Pulse and Soybean Growers. The diversification centers are receiving almost $700,000 to buy some new equipment to increase our capacity. We've bought a seeder, a tractor, or actually a few tractors, a combine, a car, just to keep more wheels turning in the field so we can have more projects and information in your hands. This is your invitation to come to our field day in July. You're more than welcome to come out. We usually serve a lunch and show you around the field, and so you can see firsthand what's going on. And just check our website periodically for updates on when those events are. We also publish a newsletter. You're more than welcome to check it out on the internet every month. So we've been publicizing since 2022, and it just kind of gives you an idea of what's going on day to day each month at the DCs. You can probably find us once in a while in our collaborators' magazines that they publish, Fence Post, the Focal Point, or the Pulse Beat. I'm sure it comes to your box too. You can also find just our variety trial results in the Manitoba Seed Guide. I have my 17 years of personal collection here. I took a photograph of. I'm still missing 2 editions, and I'm willing to pay top dollar if I can find them. And again, you can find this item down at the Manitoba Agriculture booth for your viewing pleasure. So at this point, do I have any questions to come out of the audience here?
What years are you looking for?
What was that, Ben?
What years are you looking for?
What years are you looking for the seed guide?
Oh, I don't know. I think it was like 2006 and 2013. You got them? Oh. Okay, any other questions? All right. Well, thanks for listening. If you want to know more, just check out our website at mbdiversificationcenters.ca. And if you want to do the survey here, this goes to our funders. If you like the presentation or not, just send them a note. That's where you can find it. And thanks again.